it's Christy, your friendly online speech-language pathologist and specialist in children's communication development, including behavior. Because you guessed it, behavior is a type of communication. Today I am here with another video in our pyramid model series, which is almost over. After this, there's only one more video in this series, and then we will move on to a brand new wonderful series. Today I'm going to give you 5 tools or pieces of equipment that might be useful to you during a tantrum or a meltdown. The first tool is redirecting equipment, toys or activities that your child really loves to help if the tantrum is starting to ramp up. You can redirect the child really quickly to something else and hopefully avoid that behavior. I have videos about how to calm a tantrum. There's that one. And how to calm a meltdown. There's that one. And in both cases, we should be working on redirection where appropriate. If we can avoid the tantrum or the meltdown, then that behavior will not become so deeply entrenched and we can move around it better and hopefully not have to deal with it next time. Some common redirection tactics that I use. I love the marble run. Many kids love it as well. I love the penguin run, and many kids love it as well. There are certain food-related items that can be very useful in redirection. We are not using these as a reward. We are using these as a redirection. Sometimes we need something a little different, a little shocking, a little exciting to snap us out of our tantrum or meltdown trajectory. I like to consider fruit snacks. These are not something I would probably feed my child every day, but I can keep them on hand. They're not terrible for my child, at least not the healthy ones, and they are enough, perhaps, to redirect my child out of this challenging behavior spiral. Another thing you might consider is there are certain lollipops that are flavored with fruit juice and that are colored with fruit instead of with all of the damaging and dangerous food colorings. Those are another option that I might consider. Sometimes something really cold like a fruit popsicle or frozen fruit juice can do the trick just because it's so shocking how cold it is. You might need to do some experimenting with your particular child or student to figure out what is going to be the most effective for redirecting the child. My second recommendation for a tool or equipment that can be helpful to you in managing tantrums and meltdowns is sensory equipment, sensory tools. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here because I did a very extensive series right there on sensory modalities, the 9 sensory modalities, and the ways that we can meet children's needs in those different areas. Hopefully you watched that series and you are well informed about your own child or student's particular needs, and you know, okay, when she starts to crash into walls, she needs some deep pressure. Here's how we're going to provide that. Or you know, when she starts to wiggle her fingers in front of her eyes, she needs some visual stimulation, and you have tools for providing that. I'm not saying that in the middle of a meltdown you should be handing your child sensory equipment, because that is not necessarily going to work very well. It might get thrown right back at your head. But we should have these things on hand, number 1, as a possible redirecting tool. But number 2, in the cool down process, when the tantrum or the meltdown is spinning down, the child is getting calmer, these equipment pieces can help that process to go a little bit faster. So watch that video series up there about the 9 sensory modalities and make sure that you understand your child's sensory needs and that you have those pieces of equipment on hand already so that you can have maybe a little bin for meltdowns and you can pull out the things from the bin that your child especially needs to help her calm down. Item number 3, earplugs or ear muffs. This is not only for the child. Sometimes a child's own yelling can contribute to her sensory overwhelm, in which case we have those little construction earmuffs that the child can put on her head. Once again, if this is not something that she wants, don't be handing her stuff because it will become a weapon. However, if you know this is something your child is probably going to want, then have these on hand. But also, I like to use earplugs when I am dealing with longer term extensive meltdowns or tantrums because they're so loud that my own sensory system is triggered. During a time when I'm trying to help the child through a difficult moment, I don't want to get sucked into my own weaknesses when I'm trying to help her deal with hers. So it helps to be able to at least block out some of that extraneous noise. Earplugs. Number 4, I always like to have on hand blankets, pillows, and some kind of structure, a table, a couple of chairs, that kind of thing, where we can quickly assemble a tent or a fort so that the child can sneak in there and have a dark and quiet and safe place to recover. We're calling this our recovery zone or our hidey hole, whatever we like to call it. This is the place where we can escort the child when she is not totally out of control, but when she's starting to ramp down or when she's starting to ramp up. We might know our child, hopefully we do, well enough to know that if she's starting to ramp up, we can put her in the hidey hole, we can give her some sensory equipment and turn the lights out and shut up, and she can go in there and she can calm down. This is what we want. We want our kids to be able to calm down by themselves without having to have a meltdown or a tantrum. If we offer them the appropriate equipment, this is much more likely. So, make a tent. Have a place for your child to hide away from the stressful and confusing world. This is more likely to work with a meltdown, which is from sensory overstimulation or other kind of overstimulation, than it is for a tantrum, because tantrums are all about manipulation. Your child's not going to be very successful at manipulating you if she goes away and hides in a tent. It's not going to work very well. So she's unlikely to use this strategy. But for a meltdown, it can be very effective. Number 5, recovery tools. This may be books that your child likes to read with you calmly. This might be a special kind of snack or a special activity that you save just for recovery from tantrums or meltdowns. We want to be sure that we have these special times with our children when they're recovering from a meltdown, because they're very vulnerable at that time. They're very weakened by their own behavior, sadly, and they need some adult encouragement and input. This is not a time when we want to be having them apologize or anything like that, as I've discussed in previous videos. This is a time for encouragement and for helping the child return to complete equilibrium. We need to do special activities to help our child return to equilibrium. This may be painting, it may be baking with some very aromatic compounds like cinnamon or almond extract. This may be going for a walk. We need to have these things in our mind, and we need to put them into action when our child is in the process of recovery, so that we can encourage additional recovery and our child can return to complete baseline. These are my 5 tips of equipment or tools that you should have on hand so that you are prepared for the next tantrum or meltdown. Of course, the whole purpose of this pyramid series is that we don't have challenging behavior anymore because we have worked really hard to prevent it, to teach our kids the skills that they need so they don't need to show us challenging behavior. But sometimes all the pieces don't fall into place properly and something happens. And we will be prepared with some great skills and some great equipment so that the next time will be smoother and our children will recover quicker. Tune in next time when I am going to discuss timeouts and what I think of them. Here's a hint. I don't like them. Thanks for being here. See you next time. Bye. Goodness gracious, my husband is having a very loud meeting upstairs.